hit the mics on.
Yeah, I think
Liam.
we're tested. We're ready to go. We're going live. Quiet on the set.
Quiet on the set. Quiet on the set.
Wait, did I just yell that into the live stream?
Yes, you did.
Apologies.
Do we have the thumbs up, Scott? Okay, we're live.
I feel
Are we
like
live?
Cole is not
Oh my
in the
gosh.
screen enough.
All
I
right,
know, he's a
so
little
this
cough.
is the final conversation on Wednesday, June 26th of our 2024 Western States 100 coverage. We have friend of the podcast, sometimes collaborator on episodes, great athlete, just great overall person, Katie Schide in the house. Katie, how are you doing on this now blustery-ish Wednesday evening in Olympic Valley?
I'm doing well, yeah. Happy to be here. Nice to be back here. It's a lot greener than Flagstaff, so that's been a change. But yeah, just nice to be around the energy of the race and like just trying to feed off some of the positive excitement from everyone else.
One of the first topics I want to cover with you has been or is the influence of Flagstaff over the last 2 years. It sounds like I read one of your latest Instagram posts, and it sounds like you've developed more and more affinity for that place, not just as like a training ground, but like it to some extent it felt like more and more of a home.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's the place I've spent the most time in the last 8 years in the U.S. So I think that sort of snuck up on me a little bit because although I visit my family, who's just over there, in Maine and in near Denver, where my sister lives, it's never for 2 months straight. And I did 2 months in Flagstaff last year, another 2 months this year. So yeah, it's just, I think anytime you spend that amount of time somewhere, you make your routine somewhere new, and it just becomes, part of the routine, I guess. I feel like Flagstaff's a place that I kind of didn't want to like that much because I feel like it's overhyped, honestly. There's no like big mountains. It's like a lot of desert. There's no water. There's a lot of things that I could like easily make fun of, but there's something going on there too that is special, and I'm not sure if it's the place or just some of the relationships I've built with people there, especially this year. Getting to spend more time with Abby Hall was, just a huge part of my time there, and I think it maybe was more just leaving those people than necessarily Flagstaff itself.
So, would you say Flagstaff is not the most ideal place to train for Western States, or is there any spot on the map where it's like on paper it could be more ideal, but then you said like there's just like some magic aura to Flagstaff that does somehow make it the best?
I mean, I think the best place to train would be on the course.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess Flagstaff as a place is a little bit, has a little bit more going on than Auburn. So if you were looking for a little more than just the one coffee shop in Auburn and the one sandwich shop, there's more
Flagstaff
to be
has
had
two.
there. Yeah. And there is just sort of that culture of performance. Like there was a lot of people training for U.S. swim trials, and I think some of the international swimmers were also in Flagstaff while I was there. I didn't really cross paths with any of them, but just knowing that they're there, there's the running culture, of course. So people heading to the track trials, which are this week. So you're just kind of in that atmosphere, whether or not you see those people. But just knowing you're in that community.
Yeah, you're surrounded by excellence.
Even though it's not called the endurance capital of the world.
Maybe someday.
You have as much experience as anybody in the sport, or at least close to it, with these extended training camps. What's the verdict on doing something like going to Flagstaff for 2 months and dedicating yourself this specifically to the race? Like, is it something you're going to continue to do for other races, or do your home and training grounds in France sort of have enough for other races that you're interested in the future?
I think my decision to come to the U.S. ahead of Western States is, just mostly because the course itself it would be hard to find a place in France where I would feel like I could adequately prepare. I guess there are places, honestly, where I was training before Canyons was like a pretty good place to train for this kind of race. But there's something about being just training for an American race in the U.S. I don't know. In my mind, maybe it's just as simple as that, and just getting in the country, you know, shifting time zones and being in that mindset. But there's definitely more opportunity to like change up the training a little bit more in Flagstaff. So there's like more trails that are similar to trails here than I would find at home. It's dry. It's hard to find dry places like that in France. Yeah, for sure. You can train for anything, anywhere if you set your mind to it. But I just think that I was just sort of taking advantage of this point in my life where I can do it. It's like, okay, I can do it. Why not? I mean, maybe in, a few years I will feel less inclined to do it. So it's kind of just like capitalizing on what I was motivated by at the time.
So, did similar length training blocks in Flagstaff, last year and this year. Diving into those, these past 2 months, has it looked very different from, that 2-month block from 2023?
No, a little bit different because I was coming off of canyons. So in 2023, my race before Western States was Eco Trail Paris in March. And I had actually done the Coastal Challenge in Costa Rica before that. So I had even been running a lot earlier in the winter, like a lot more, because I needed to be ready to run like 250K in February, which looking back, I still don't know how I did that. But yeah, so I had started running more earlier last year and then sort of like slowly built it in to the year. And this year, I know everyone, you guys are looking at my Strava, but I went to Gran Canaria with the North Face and then stayed an extra week and just did like a kind of my own coastal challenge, like just did like a huge week. And that kind of just kicked off my running for the year. So it was a little bit later than last year. And then I waited until canyons to do my first race. And I did like kind of put a little bit more weight on canyons than I did on Eco Trail. So going into canyons, I was like training a bit more, like with a bit more intention than Eco Trail. So I feel like I maybe started training with a little bit more intention earlier this year than last year.
Okay.
At least on the American scene, by my count, what you did at Canyons this year was like an all-time performance, just incredible. And I'm curious to hear about the rationale for jumping back into pretty significant training quickly after the race.
Yeah, so I outsource all my training. I have a coach. So yeah, I mean, most of that it's of course through discussions, but yeah, Jason Coop's my coach and I trust him with his ideas. He trusts me with my ideas. And that was sort of just, of course the first thing was to see how I felt after canyons, before like pressing all the buttons again. But yeah, I felt really great after canyons. I recovered well and, I took a little bit of downtime, but not a ton, not the classic, like lay on the couch for 2 weeks, before starting to jog
far
again.
From that.
Yeah. I think it's important to remember that like I have been in the sport for a while, so I do have a good sense of how I feel after a race. And although canyons is 100K, it was nine hours, which is not, I have a lot of experience at things that are significantly longer than that. So I don't want to say 9 hours is short because it's not. It's a super long time to be running, but it's not like after Diagonal des Fous when I did 27 hours. And then it's a little different story about what's going on in your body. So I think if you go into a race really well prepared, the recovery can be a lot faster. And I did feel really well prepared going into canyons. So I think it just gave me that momentum going forward.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, maybe you count canyons as one of these, but is there a particular run in this training block that you could describe that gave you a lot of confidence for this Saturday?
I did a bunch. I did quite a few runs in the Grand Canyon, and they were not all great. They were not all bad either. But yeah, some of those, the ones that weren't really bad, those for sure gave you confidence because you get to the bottom of the canyon and it's a heat wave and there's nobody even hiking because it's so hot and you're jogging along, not that fast, but I think, yeah, actually Jim kind of mentioned in his interview that I listened to, it is really about like how you feel and less about the number on your watch. Like I didn't do any crazy days where I was running crazy splits, but like there's days I can look back and say, okay, maybe I was running the same pace these 2 days, but I felt awesome that one day. And the numbers don't show that. Like you're not going to go through my Strava profile and be like, oh wow, she was cruising that day, because maybe it was the same pace as another day, but in my mind, I know which days I felt good.
Have you always approached your training from a more intuitive type standpoint, or is that something that you've worked more on in, recent years?
I'm someone who's really good at like, I don't know if it's a good thing or not, but I really like following a plan and like having things, lined up and like seeing where things are going to lead. And that's what gives me confidence.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've gotten better at like feeling or just taking more notes on like how I feel when I'm training. But I think that's just learning over time what is feeling good and what is not. And also there's always the context of a run. Like if you go do a long run and yesterday you also did a long run, you have to take that into account. Especially, I think actually this is funny because in Flagstaff there's so many Strava segments.
Yeah.
And where I normally live and train, there are almost no Strava segments.
Oh, you
And
could
so
make them all then.
You go for a run in Flagstaff and
Are
you're
you
like,
the creator of all of them?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're like, oh, I felt awesome today. And then you pull up the Strava segments and you're like number 280. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, let's just not look at those. But it's something you have to keep in mind is like, okay, maybe the top 50 people on this Strava segment were having the day of their life. It was their only long run in 2 weeks. And here I am in the middle of a huge training block. Like it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing when you run in the Grand Canyon in June and February.
Right.
Yes.
So yeah, there's always like little caveats to keep in mind in training.
People do love racing Strava segments too.
I think a lot of people see this the same way. I see you as a model of professionalism in the sport, but I know that everything is so personal for each athlete, and I'm curious because I know that you've been intentional about your trajectory in the sport. Do you feel like you're operating at 100% effort right now, or is it close to that? Is it 85%? Like, how satisfied are you with how much you're giving to your craft right now?
Finn always with the good questions.
Yeah, I was like, damn.
I don't think I'll ever be at 100% if I got to that point. It's what keeps me wanting to keep searching for new things or like trying new things is because I never feel like I'm at 100%. I think every year I am able to add a little bit more and learn a little bit more. And yeah, I guess effort wise, like, yeah, I'm giving it 100%, but I don't feel like
You're not maxed out.
Yeah, I'm not like totally maxed out yet. I mean, that's what I'm searching for, but
Okay. That makes sense. That checks.
It's the thing you might never, probably will
you might never
get.
know until you look back at it. You're
Yeah.
like, that's when I was maxed out.
Yeah, maybe.
But it'll be a fond memory for sure.
I mean, I also have a lot of questions about race day approach and tactics. Do you have anything else about training?
Yeah, no, let's move on to race day.
I mean, one of the things for me, and I know you have a great relationship with Kim and Topher Gaylord and they're, I think, crew chiefs for this race. You're also so process oriented, right? Like you're so detailed. To the extent that you can, I'd love to hear you talk about some of the marginal gains that you think about at like aid station stops and crew interactions. Because I feel like you're on the cutting edge of this in some regards, and it would like a lot of your like this is normal would like surprise some people.
I actually don't. I've never felt like someone who's good at aid stations. Maybe just because you're thinking about canyons, and I seemed to be one of the only people who switched packs.
And it looked efficient.
Yeah, but changing packs is hard to make inefficient. You just give someone your back. But I think what the difference was is like I planned that ahead of time.
Yeah, like the night before the race, the days before the race, like sitting around the kitchen table.
Yeah, I think this is the thing where I was just really surprised nobody else was doing that. Because you didn't, there was the only required gear was like a windbreaker and a cup. So I have more than one windbreaker. So I packed 3 windbreakers from France and 3 cups. And
oh man, Katie with
I
the big brain
all
moves
set
here.
to switch packs. Yeah, I don't know why anyone else didn't do that, but yeah, actually, I would like to get a lot better at aid stations in races when there's more happening in the aid stations. I think for me, I did a lot of, I don't know, like more complex ultras first.
Mm-hmm.
So like UTMB, Diagonal des Fous, UTCAM, which was like a race in my home area, where there was a lot of like overnight sections, or Lavaredo, like there's overnight sections, you're managing like layers and long sleeves and gear and headlamps and way more nutrition and way more stuff that you're gonna have to like refill at an aid station after. And I come to an American race and I'm like, okay, there's people all the time. I just hand them my bag, I take a new bag, don't have to refill anything because I'm gonna see them again in like an hour. So for me, it feels super easy. So there's nothing, I don't I don't know if you have like a more specific.
Do you know roughly what your stoppage time was at aid stations last year at this course? Roughly?
I have no idea.
Okay. That might be a question for aid station fireball.
I felt like I wasn't that efficient last year.
So there was time to gain just in the
Yeah.
aid station stops.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess there's still a lot of aid stations that are not crewed. So
Mhm.
then you have to do it all yourself, and it's like you said.
That's more what I think that was an advantage for me last year because I'm used to doing it all myself.
So that felt more regular.
Yeah. Actually, the cool thing was that the volunteers here actually help you.
They're like
Because
very
technically at
helpful.
UTMB they're not allowed. Well, it's not clear what the rules are, but you're not supposed to get assistance.
Okay, yeah.
In the aid station that is not crewed. So
Mhm.
technically, I believe that would be interpreted as like the volunteer can't help you.
Yeah.
Sometimes they help hold your flask or something, but
Okay.
generally you're left on your own.
Mm-hmm.
So here it was cool because you get to an aid station and like there's 10 people who all want to fill up your flask, who all want to help you find something, and that was pretty fun. And we didn't have crew on the other side of the river last year.
Yeah, was it? This is like 10 volunteers for every runner in the race. It's like
Yeah, it was
ask and you
wild.
shall receive. Is the crew situation any different this year compared to last year?
The only difference is that my mom isn't here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's back home
Watching the live stream.
at a cousin's wedding, she has some mayor duties to attend to.
Mm.
Oh, that sounds important.
Yeah.
I'm curious, as the race is unfolding on Saturday, does your strategy change at all based on what's happening in the women's race and the men's race around you? Are you responding to anything, or are you completely devoted to like running a predefined plan?
I think the goal has to just be to, do the run your own race thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's easy to. I think I'm comfortable saying that. Like I want to just go do my best and just wherever, however that plays out, where my strengths and weaknesses are. But even though you go in saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna run my own race, like of course you're influenced by other people. So it's kind of like going in with the intention of saying, okay, I'm going to do my best, but I came here to race against other people. So that's going to happen naturally. And I'm not going to like force that part of it because I know that will happen on its own.
In terms of like goal setting for this race, and you don't have to say anything specifically or not. That's that can totally up to you.
Well, I hope she does.
Well, yeah. Do you pay like what way? Like, you're looking at like more place goals throughout the race, time goals, neither, both.
I guess a little bit of both. I think because we had so much snow at the beginning last year, I'm having a hard time deciding how much that will affect the time.
Yeah, totally.
So I think that's sort of just like a question mark. And we'll see how that plays out. Of course, I would like to be at the front of the race.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's that depends on more things than I can control.
Yeah, totally. Do you feel more comfortable, like, being at the front, like towards the front of a race, trying to, run away from people as opposed to like hunting people down? Everyone's got their different styles. It seems like you've run very comfortably at the front of races for the last few years. I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, they each have more and less stressful components, I would say. I don't think there's one that I like favor significantly more than the other. It's cool to have someone ahead of you because it gets you really in that like racing mindset, and it kind of makes, it's less of a like, oh, I hope this person behind me doesn't catch me. It's more like, all right, like let's go. Like it's a bit more like pulling you forward a little bit more. But I do also like running at the front if that's how it pans out.
Yeah.
But it can be a little bit more stressful because then you usually don't get updates for a while on your splits, and it can be kind of a mind game with yourself trying to figure out how to pace things and not go too hard. So I guess either would be my answer.
I was reading an interview you did with Doug Mayer before this conversation, and I was surprised to learn that, post-race, there was some part of you that was questioning that performance and thinking, like, was I lucky on the day? Talk more about that.
Oh, that's always the question. I mean, I've felt like that for years. Like, even I remember after CCC in 2018, when I finished second, it was like my first biggest result. It's like, oh, maybe it was just like a lucky day. And that's always the thing I have, is like, what if those other things were just lucky days? And I think you're just always wondering, like, is this always going to work, or like, when is this going to stop working? But that's the little thing in my head. So that's always the like little voice I'm trying to silence, I guess.
Do you trust the training more this time around, going into 2024 Western States?
I think what I try to tell myself is the training started years and years ago. So even though, I mean, it's really easy to say this to you while I'm sitting here in my taper with race day in a couple days.
Like Olympic Valley.
Yeah, but it's about like trusting years and years of training, not just, it's cool that when people put up big numbers on their training for a couple weeks, but ultimately it's what you've been doing for like 5, 6, 8, 10 years that really matters the most, especially in this sport, because it requires so much later in the day.
Yeah, one thing that's always intrigued me about your training was you do a lot of back-to-back long runs. Have you found that over time those just bring out a really great training stimulus to stack multiple long days instead of trying to make one day even longer?
I think what works, I do. Well, the first thing is that I love back-to-back long runs. Like, that's when I see that on the calendar, I'm like,
okay, well, that's helpful then to like
cannot wait.
Do
like,
training that you enjoy.
Love this, yeah. And I think that's just coming from like referenced in the article Doug just shared. Was like working in the AMC huts and just like going out every day, and not. I mean, we didn't have watches. We had watches that had the time on them, but we had no idea what we were doing. We were just running around. And I think it's just born from there. It's like you wake up, even if you did a super long hike the day before, but your friend's going to go for another long hike. You're like, why not? Just go for it. And I think those are the feelings that I really like, is that like fatigue. It's like when you can still operate in that fatigue.
Yeah.
And that's what I really like about those like back-to-back long run days.
I've got at least one more race question, maybe two more. The first, and obviously we maybe positively or negatively contribute to this narrative, but there's a lot of questions surrounding, whether you're capable of running underneath Courtney Dauwalter's course record from last year. I know that some people might say it's disrespectful to consider that. I've heard you even say that. But like, this Canyons performance was just mind blowing. It was next level. And is that a factor for you on race day? Or are you just concerned with like being better than you were on the day last year?
Yeah, I would like to. I mean, one of my goals would be to smooth the feelings of last year. I had like a pretty rough patch at the end that is quite obvious if you look at splits. I mean, that's not like a secret. And I would like to get through there feeling much better than last year. Yeah, Courtney's time is unreal. Like, I'm not sure if most people actually understand how unreal it is. So it will depend on whether, like, there's also a race happening, which is important to remember. It's not a time trial. So there are like more interactions and things going on. It's not something on my mind. I'm not like writing down splits of course records or anything. Yeah, I didn't even know about Ellie's times until midway through the race last year. So,
given how deep this women's field is, I think it's the deepest we've seen yet. Do you think it's going to require you going faster than you ran last year to win this race? Are you planning to run faster?
I would like to run faster. Again, yeah, I don't know what the latest weather forecast was.
It's looking like medium.
It must add a few minutes without the boats.
Yeah, definitely a little bit.
And then I don't know how much the snow will change things. Because I personally didn't feel like the snow was an issue last year, but I know some people really felt like it was an issue.
Yeah, there was
like, it's gonna change the dynamics of the front of the race for sure.
Yeah, there was like 2 camps for the first 50K last year. Those who were like,
it was like snow runners.
Snow, it saved my legs because I was so comfortable. And others were like, I was struggling so much, and then like I burned way too many matches to get through. But you're right, like just there being lack of snow, like yes, that's probably means it's faster. Is that good for the legs in the next 100K? Yeah, it'll be an interesting question to see answered on race day.
But I think that the winning time will be faster than my time last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I thought so too, just for what it's worth. Glad we're on the same page.
It doesn't look like we're in the triple
I thought so
digits,
too.
So, I mean, I'm also not the one to ask about these things. I've only done this race once. You should ask like this guy what he thinks.
We'll ask him on Friday.
We'll ask him on Friday.
I'll ask him when I stop at the aid station.
Mile 90.
There is one question from the chat. Well, there's many, but one that I want to highlight. If you had an entrance song, like walking up to the start line in Palisades Tahoe, please, what would it be?
What would the walkout song be?
What's the walkout song?
Oh man,
I learned you liked country. You're a country music fan.
Oh yeah, of course, country pop.
Okay.
I think it would either have to be Taylor Swift or like French pop. That's what I've been alternating between the last few months.
What a playlist. Can you make a long run playlist for us on Spotify?
I don't listen to music when I run.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
good. Good factoid.
This is like, that would be a fun discussion to have.
Whether music or
whether
not.
we should allow headphones in races, but anyway.
What do you think?
No, but that's my opinion.
I like it. Yeah.
Are people in this race like competing for top 10 podium, the win? Are they going to be using headphones?
Dude, Courtney listened to music last year.
Oh, that's right.
She's got that. She's got rock
No,
an
she
iPod
doesn't
shuffle.
listen to music like with, like when I was running with her, she didn't
Oh,
have
yeah.
music,
Okay.
but she definitely listens to music during races. I don't
Yeah.
think poorly of anyone who listens to music. You're
Yeah.
allowed to. It's in the rules. You're totally allowed to.
Yeah, for sure. No, I get it.
Gotcha. I hadn't even thought of that. That's interesting.
We're gonna go down into psychology of it for the next hour.
Any other questions?
No, I'm just thinking about listening to music on runs. The walkout song, that was a great answer.
How about a successful day? What does a successful day look like for you on Saturday?
I think just like almost like canyons. I feel like after canyons, I sat down to write like a cool Instagram race recap and was just like, I have nothing to say, nothing it was just like things clicked off and I did everything I wanted to do. Nothing was crazy amazing. Nothing was crazy bad. Just like steady all day. I got to enjoy the course. I felt like I had a good time, executed what I wanted, and like that would be my success.
Katie, there actually is one more question. This is from the chat. It's been an ongoing theme. It's kiss, marry, kill, and it's high carb intake, heat management, and super shoes. You have to kiss one, marry another, kill another.
Wait, where is this? So I
The women of the Wasatch would also like to know Katie's marry, kiss, kill.
Yeah, we've been.
Oh wait,
talking
what
about
were
this
the?
before.
For
So
what were they?
It was high carb fueling, topical cooling, or trail super shoes. You got to marry one, kiss one, and kill one.
I think I would kiss topical cooling, marry trail super shoes, which
Ooh.
just shout out, like North Face has had a trail super shoe for many years. So
I'm running them.
since 2022.
testing
I've been
them right
running
now.
in them right now. Yeah.
They're awesome.
They're fun.
That's why I would marry them. And kill high carb
Kill high
fueling.
carb fueling.
Interesting.
Cool.
Long live reasonable carb fueling.
I think that's the perfect place to end it. Katie, we appreciate you. I know time is precious. I know that you probably need to be as horizontal as possible in the lead up to Western. So thank you for showing up and sharing some of your insights leading to this. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.